Hello, and welcome to another iClone 7 Academy tutorial. Today's topic will be animating with morphs. Now let's take a look at this bouncing ball animation. It looks good, very simple. However, we can totally enhance this by adding a few extra morphs to this translation, rotation, and scale. Now let's go ahead and bring another sphere here that we applied the morphs to, and take a look at this. It looks much better. What we're doing here is basically applying the principles of squash and stretch. This makes the object look more alive. Now, if you want to learn more about animation itself, just do a quick search for bouncing ball, and you will get a ton of diagrams here, and you can learn more about spacing and timing and the squash and stretch, which is one of the 12 principles of animation. If you don't know what this is, I would definitely recommend that you read about it and learn it if you have the time. This will increase the quality of your animations like tenfold. So definitely spend at least an hour reading about this, going through videos on YouTube, because definitely this will help you out a lot. Alright, so how can we do this squash and stretch effect? And the answer, morphs. Alright, so let's go ahead and I'll show you how to create these morphs. Let's turn this guy off and go over here and select this guy. And now we're going to go into our animation tab over here and still go to Morph Creator. Okay, this is going to open our Morph Creator app. And what we're going to do here is I'm going to go ahead and export this as an OBJ. So I'm just going to you can either do it this way by clicking over here, export selected, or you can go ahead and do it over here. So export selected right here. So I'm going to go ahead and click over here. Y app is correct. That's what I want. And now I'm going to put it in somewhere where I'm going to find it. So in my case, I'm going to put it here under tutorials, morphs, and bouncing ball, and OBJ. So I got a folder here. And here I have the object already saved as an OBJ, but I'll just go ahead and resave it on top. It doesn't really matter. Just say OK. Alright, my export is complete. So the next step is, how do we deform this? Now, we can use any 3D applications such as Maya, 3ds Max, or even Blender, which is a free app software for making 3D. However, in this case, we're going to use Maya because that's what I have right now. So I'm going to go ahead and select my Maya software and go ahead and go import. I'm going to import that shape in. So go import. And in here, I'm going to select my P-sphere OBJ, which is the object we just saved. So there you go, that's there. So now we're going to go ahead and create a deformation on the sphere. Now, in set packages, the deformation is called a freeform deformation, FFD. In my case, it is called a lattice. So I'm going to go ahead and select this guy, and then I'm going to go to deform and create a lattice. All right, and next I'm going to go ahead and select my lattice points here. I'm going to select them all first, then I'm going to scale them real quick, like so. And then I'm just going to select the bottom ones and I'm going to scale that down just to create a tier shape. So this is going to be the ball that when it bounces off the floor, it's going to move upwards. So most of the volume is going to be at the top and the rest is going to follow behind. Alright, so once we have this, I'm going to select my object. I'm going to go ahead and delete my history real quick. So this, the lattice disappears, but the deformation stays with it. And in here, I'm going to go ahead and call this P-sphere up underscore P-sphere. Something like that. Okay, so After that, I'm going to go ahead and save it. So now I went ahead and have a few shapes already pre-made using the exact same technique. So I have this guy over here. So I'm going to go ahead and select this guy up. And I'm going to go ahead and export this as selection as an OBJ. And I'm going to call it up sphere. Exactly the exact same name and say export selection. I'm going to override it. That's okay. All right. And now I have a few extra spheres that I did, like I said, using the exact same technique. I'm going to select this guy over here. And I'm going to call, this one is called down P sphere. So let's go ahead and do that. I'm going to go ahead and export that one. Export selection. And I'm going to call it, instead of up, down P sphere. Okay. And press enter. All right. Now let's go back to our Morph app and bring in those two morphs that we just added. All right. So I'm going to click on the little plus sign over here, and I'm going to bring in first up P sphere. And okay. Notice it created a slider for us. And now when I move the slider, it has the morph in there. All right, now let's bring the other one down P sphere. And notice that when I move the slider here, look what happens. It shifts to the side. Why is that? Okay, the reason why that happens is because in Maya, when we save this object, it was away from the center of the world. What do I mean by that? Well, there is an origin of the world, which is there, which is coordinate 0, 0, 0. And notice that our sphere, it has been translated 100 units to the side on X. So what we got to do here is make sure that this is 0 out. So it's actually in the center. I'm going to go ahead and resave this now. Export selection, P sphere down, and just override it. Okay, and I'm going to go ahead and do the same thing for the other shapes because I know I'm going to need to do that. So make sure it goes 0 over here, like so. Now we'll call this one export selection and call it long underscore P sphere. Let's see, sphere. Okay, and now we're going to do the same thing on this guy, and we're going to make sure the translation is set properly to 0. And again, we're going to go ahead and save this guy, export selection, and we're going to call this one P sphere low. Okay. All right. So now we have all of our 4 shapes ready to rock and roll here. Let's go back to our Morph Creator and bring in those extra 2 shapes that we added. So click on the plus sign. And now notice that you can actually select multiple selections here, and it will create multiple sliders. So select one and then shift select the second and open. And press OK. And now we have our 4 morphs in for the sphere. The long one for the stretching and the low one for the squashing. So we have squash and stretch, right? So, okay. So next, let's go ahead and take it over to iClone. However, I want you to take a look at this so that you can see what I'm talking about here. As far as, oh, one thing I almost forgot is our P sphere down. Remember, it was shifting to the side. We need to reload that. So the way you do this is you select the morph that you want and you click on replace. By doing that, you can go ahead and go P sphere down, reselect that one because we resaved it with the proper with the object being at the 0 coordinates in the world coordinates. So press OK and just bring it in there. Say OK. And you will notice now that when we move this, it doesn't slide to the side anymore. So that's how you fix a morph that you may notice that it did something funky, or maybe you forgot to take that sphere back to the origin of the world. However, there's another method that is basically what you can do is just select the sphere, you can delete it, and then just bring it back in by pressing the plus sign. So that's kind of the flexibility that you have with a morph editor, morph creator. Now let's go ahead and go back into now what I wanted to show you here in between iClone and our morph creator here is that these two buttons over here and what they do. You will notice that if I click on this one, like so, it has sent the sphere into iClone, but it is really not affecting the sphere that was animated. So the morphs in here, if you go to Morph Animator, see they're not there. They are actually on this sphere that you just brought in. So they are actually there, and that's not what we want. What we want is take the morphs that we created and apply them to this animated sphere. So I'm going to go ahead and delete this, and I'm going to select the sphere, and then I'm going to go back to Morph Creator. And instead of using this top button here, the Send Replace to iClone, is Update Morph to iClone instead. Alright, so by doing so, now if we select the sphere here, and we go to Animation tab, and we go to Morph Animator, you'll see we have all the sliders in here. Alright, now before we apply the morphs, I want to show you something that it was necessary to do in order to save us having to create extra morphs. And what I'm talking about here is the fact that if I show you here, take a look at our translation. I'm going to put the translation widget so you can see what I'm talking about. Notice that the sphere is being rotated on the path of the bounce. Now, the reason this was done is because all our morphs were created up to down. So by animating the rotation of the sphere, we are saving morphs because all we have to do is apply the morphs, and they will already have the direction that they need to be in. So otherwise, you would have to create a morph that it was pointing this way, and then when it gets to the point of the bounce and going the other direction, then you got to create another morph for this. So you end up with 8 morphs or maybe more in order to make this look smooth. But by actually animating the rotation as we translate the sphere, we can make this animation happen and make it look like the morphs are happening as it travels. Otherwise, what would happen was if we didn't animate the rotation, basically the morphs would happen just up and down, and it wouldn't follow the direction of the bouncing sphere. So please keep that in mind. All right. So let's go ahead and start our animation. Let's bring the timeline in, like so. And we have the sphere already selected. So what we're going to do is activate the morphs, the morph track, so you can see all our morphs in here. All right, so and we'll start at frame 30 here, and we're going to plop down some keyframes. So I'm going to go ahead and say key default. All right, so we just create keyframes for all these guys. All right, next we are as the sphere travels, we are going to start slowly elongating by using the long sphere over here, just a little bit, and then our sphere down over here, so give it a little bit of tear shaped there, and then keep moving forward and stretch it out at this point over here, like so, and make sure we have all the way down to this shape here, the full stretch. So what you want to do is have the stretch happen more towards the end, because otherwise, you know, it needs to create a certain acceleration. So let's do this. Let's go there. So it keeps the shape, and as it gets closer and closer, gravity is pulling harder and harder because of the acceleration and gravity going at the same time. And then on the next, when it hits the floor, we are going to go ahead at this point, before it bounces right up, we are going to animate our sphere low. So we create a squash effect there. And we're going to take away the sphere long out and the sphere down away. So now we have a squash effect right there. Now in here, we want to make sure that we create a keyframe for our squash, because we don't want to squash until it actually hits the floor. So let's make sure this is keyframe properly there. So it only happens when it hits the floor. Boink. Now when it goes up again, in here we are going to have to immediately make this part go away. So we're gonna the squashing out, and we want the up sphere morph to happen. So now as we do the bounce, see? Now we have to keep animating this over time. Now, but you get the gist of it. You just keep moving the sliders to make it feel. Now we can, as it goes up, we can go ahead and start making this a little more elongated. And then when it starts reaching the point, the peak of the animation there, as it slows down, we want to start shrinking this, like so. And as it travels forward to here, then we just remove the shape and becomes sphere-like again. So, and basically that's the whole process of animating the sphere. So all we got to do now is I'll just turn this one on, and I'll show you, you know, what this was like. So here are the keyframes of what it will eventually look like after you animate the full sequence. And we're done. That's pretty much it. Pretty simple, right? Now, if you spend a few, you know, if you, like I said before, if you add a few extra shapes, like I have done over here, like so, there's 3 extra shapes over here, you can do an animation that looks more like this. And I did it using the exact same process. Pretty cool, right? It just comes completely alive by adding a few simple extra morphs. All right, so this will conclude our tutorial. I hope you enjoyed it, and I will catch you on the next one. Until then, have a good night. Thank you.